It's been nearly a year, and I'm not going to bore you with how I've been inside my own head. We're just going to talk about creativity. So, the thing that I think annoys me the most about talking to people, they think that being creative is just something that you're kind of born with. It's something like talent. It's either something that you are or something that you're not. And I wonder how many people have not pursued music or any type of visual art or design or photography because they have this assumption of being a creative as being this flighty, kind of hippie-like free spirit that is non-committal, non-confrontational, or completely argumentative, depending on the type of creative that you're talking about. Someone that is completely insecure and self-assured, equally ambitious, yet completely nihilistic. And it's funny that when we think about all of these dichotomies, like someone that's open yet very opinionated, we don't quite know how to not only define what makes someone creative, but at that point it's really easy to look at the aspects that we don't identify with under the label of a creative and just say, I'm not like that, so I'm just going to do other things. I've used creativity, the word, but let's talk about it, at least in a way that makes sense to me. Creativity, in a sense, is whenever you produce something new and valuable. I don't want to get too much into theories of value. All I'm going to say here is, let's say, musically useful. And that can mean anything from playing something new on a gig that works and is appreciated, or something that you write and people like. I don't necessarily like the idea that in order for something to be creative, there has to be some externalized sense of value imposed on it from someone else. In order for us to get emotional fulfillment from our instrument, we can most definitely create things, and the value is strictly internal. Now, I don't want to use this to kind of shift frame into, because it's valuable to me, that means everyone else should find it valuable. That's a lot more complicated, but understanding the history of the instrument that you're playing and changing things that are already established in the history of your instrument or art, that will probably be seen as more valuable to at least the people that value the history of your art than, let's say, a completely random act on a specific instrument or whatever. There is value from inheriting a cultural lineage, and there is value from utility. So let's say, and maybe because some of you guys are much smarter than I am, you discover a new way to play a drum fill that is functionally beneficial, but for some reason no one else has thought of, and it catches on so hard that it becomes this meme across Instagram and YouTube or whatever. That would be creative. Now, the memeing of it, the people that will basically copy it and play it the same way as you, that's not creative, because at a certain point it's not new. But as people change it and have different opinions on it and play it in different ways, that will be creative. It's taking a shared pool of information and value, it's borrowing from a shared pool of information and value and creating something new. That's why oftentimes, in order to innovate on the instrument or whatever art form you choose, it's helpful to understand the history of it first. A baby can play drums and play some new things, but it won't necessarily have any value to it. It won't be in time. It won't be referencing any type of history. It won't be functional musically or anything like that. So you as a father or a mother may be able to see that as valuable, but it won't be valuable to the rest of the world. And that's basically the reason children are not creative acts. So being creative, to me, really is about recontextualization. Here is one illustration that I like to use quite a bit when talking about creativity. Imagine a conversation. You've probably done this in your mind many times. You'll simulate conversations that you have with people that you plan on talking to. Somebody pissed you off and you're simulating how that argument would go and just getting madder and madder and madder, right? Simulate that conversation in your mind. If you're not angry, imagine a friend, imagine a coworker, whatever, a first date. Let's just say the snare drum is you, right? And the floor tom is your conversation partner. As you're listening to what's unfolding in your mind, play along to it. Play along to the rhythm of the speech that you're imagining. It doesn't have to be in time. Conversations have a completely different rhythm to them. I'm not saying that they can't be in time sometimes, but that's not the point. The point is you are playing what you're observing in your imagination. It has nothing to do with who your favorite drummer is. It has nothing to do with your ability to play drums really at all. You're generating something new that is completely apart from the usual academic framework of the instrument. You may see this game of simulating a conversation in your mind as being a little esoteric or weird, but we constantly do this. If I feel like I can predict what someone is about to say, it's really, really difficult for me to keep my mouth shut, because I'm the type of person that if you already know what I'm talking about, you can save me a breath or two by just showing me that we're on the same page and we can move this thing along. But everybody is not that way, and we get into trouble by assuming that everyone has your preferences, and that's something that I'm working on, I promise. This idea of predicting what's going to happen in the future is so important for our creative mind. It is the thing that tells you that someone, while driving, is going to change lanes, even if they didn't turn their turn signal on. It's the thing that tells you that someone has a problem with you and they look at you in a specific type of way and they're probably going to come and talk to you about it. That person may be your boss or your partner or whatever, and your mind is already reeling. If you did something, you may even know what that conversation is going to be about, but you've already started, right? And so all of those are creative acts and they're very valuable to you. But now with recontextualization, we can use that. We can use that as fodder, as inspiration to fuel our creativity. So think about it like that. Think about any time that you see a shape. What would that shape, this is so abstract, but what would that shape sound like? What does that color make you feel? Is there a sound that makes you feel something similar? There's a reason that when Questlove talks about the Dilla feel, he talks about like a drunken beat, right? We immediately, those of us that have been drunk, understand the uneven, off-kilter feeling of being drunk, and that is what that feels like applied to a groove, something that is usually static. If somebody is a good timekeeper, doesn't mean it's not dynamic, but it's predictable. And so you take the predictability out of something, even if it's in a measured way. You throw a wrench that is hard to count and bob your head through, and all of a sudden you feel, like you have an inner ear problem, but it's a drum beat. Sometimes those connections are very personal, and sometimes those connections are cliches. For example, take that rhythm, right? You hear it anytime there's something tense in a big blockbuster movie or something scary. I mean, it's just tension because that 7 rhythm, or sometimes it's 5, but it's very angular, right? It doesn't have the same sense of resolution. And because it is such a cultural staple, we become used to hearing that. And so in your writing, you can use that to have the same feeling, or you could completely subvert it by making it the happiest thing. Because it's not like tension is never happy. There is the anticipation right before a kiss. The kiss is going to happen. They're both moving in each other's faces at hopefully a reasonable speed. You guys be safe out there. But your heart is beating a mile a minute, right? Happiness and tension can coexist. This is one of my favorite examples. Let's say that you choose to play along to the speech of your favorite TikTok or YouTube or scene from a movie.
It states quite clearly that all offers shall become null and void if, and you can read it for yourself in this photostatic copy, I, the undersigned.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said,
none of you bitches got these exclusive Swisher Sweets ups. What's poppin'?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, dude, one of them snipe hunts last night, man, with them sticks in the bag, and whack, man, if he'd go, woo, talking about that big mistake, y'all, just right there in that cooler.
Whenever some people hear speech or the rain or birds, their brain translates what they hear into raw material for their creative outlet. That transformative recontextualization from one completely different facet into your creative outlet of choice is one of the most powerful avenues that you can exploit to fuel your creativity. And many people have done this. This exercise is as old as the art form itself. Now, the communication thing is, something that I kind of stumbled onto on my own as a teenager. I used to want to be a novelist, and it was really, really easy for me to imagine conversations because I did it all the time when I was writing about characters. Put 2 people in a room, they'll talk forever, and all I have to do is write down what they say. All of that stuff is generated by me, but it's not a type of puppetry where I have a desired outcome. I mean, sometimes I would, but even those could be subverted by what naturally occurs for each character to say, and all of a sudden I'm going in a new direction. But your openness to that, to listening to yourself or figuring out what your inner voice has to say in whatever way it speaks, is probably the most powerful and obvious way for you to understand what creativity is. And the things that we do in life, responsibilities and anxieties, they get in the way of that voice a lot. And one of the big things that can get in the way of that voice is ourselves. If I didn't get in my own way for whatever reason, I could have probably made a video every month this year and grown this channel. But because I have even because I started to hate all of this stuff. Hate's not the right word. The more and more I played music, the more I disassociated from it. It was just something that I had to do in order to live at a certain point. And the construction of social media being in your face with greatness all of the time, yet not being able to understand my own, as it were, or at least the vision of my own, made me undervalue my own voice. And if this channel is about anything, it's about that journey. So allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Jonathan Green. This is Dramosophy, a channel where I talk about whatever the fuck I want. And I hope you guys can find something useful out of it. Until next time.